The Resident Evil games are the perfect balance between horror and goofy charm.
Where's everyone going? Bingo?
They're like the video game equivalent of those cheesy Amazon Prime movies, right up there with Sharknado 5, Global Swarming. That is until the series lost touch with its roots and began moving in a more action-packed direction. This led to fans losing interest in the franchise after the disaster that was Resident Evil 6.
What the?
So for Resident Evil 7, rather than trying to be the next Call of Duty, the game was narrowed down to a smaller, more focused story. And that focus was on scaring the pants off you. They went from trying to be the next Michael Bay film to using classic horror movies as a blueprint for this game. And while it was a huge risk, it may have resulted in one of the greatest survival horror games I've ever played. In this game, we take the role of Ethan Winters, who recently got a message from his wife Mia telling him to come here. Now this is strange because 2 years ago, Mia went missing, leaving behind not a single clue as to where she could be. Mia told us to come find her all the way out here in Butt Cheek, Louisiana, but thankfully, there is nothing out here. Supposedly she's inside that weird murder house, and we've got to go in and get her out. I'm gonna die. Once we actually get into the house and walk through this clearly PT-inspired hallway, we're introduced to one of the biggest horror elements that this game uses. Rot. This kitchen that looks like the inside of a Twitch streamer's bedroom plays a fundamental role in creating an unsettling atmosphere as soon as you walk in the door. The room is full of rotten food, weathered furniture, and little bugs scurrying all around the place. Clues hidden around pointing at what evils might be lurking among us. And over here on the table, we got a little environmental storytelling, which is my favorite. There's a newspaper detailing the disappearance of over 20 people in the last 2 years. I don't think it takes a genius to figure out what's going on here. Bears. Just around the corner from this nasty kitchen is the attic, and you already know, when you're in the murder house, you gotta go up in the attic. This is the first of many save rooms. It's something that is incredibly iconic for Resident Evil and makes a lot of sense for a horror game, because it would be way less scary if you could just quick save and quick load whenever you wanted to. Although thankfully, you can save as many times as you want, unlike the first few games where saving depended on an item, and if you didn't have any more of that item, you couldn't save the game. All right, we've had our taste of the rancid, rotten horror, but a horror game full of horror tropes would be incomplete without a little bit of analog horror. Inspired by stuff like the Blair Witch Project and The Ring, Resident Evil 7 has these VHS tapes placed all over. But this isn't a rare VHS taping of Bambi straight from the Walt Disney Vault. Oh no. These are tapes made by different characters within the game and are used to reveal secret passageways or unfurl more of the story in this game. If you remember earlier, there was that van sitting out in front of the gate. Well, that belonged to a team of ghost hunters called the Sewer Gators. And this tape was their recording of exploring this abandoned house in the bayou. And they're here to investigate the disappearance of the family that lived here. And I'll just say, this guy's no Zach Baggins from Ghost Adventures, the greatest ghost hunter of all time, because immediately, this dude's producer goes missing. That would never happen to Zach.
Andre! Clancy, you see where Andre went?
Yeah, let's just fast forward that real quick. Long story short, they go and find a weird hole in the wall and they go through it and there's a ladder. You go down it, oh my god, guy's dead. That's scary, and lives were lost. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. Anyways, the important thing to acknowledge here is that we learn this house used to belong to a family called the Bakers. Dude called them backward. I don't really know exactly what that means. Apparently they went missing 3 years ago, suspiciously around the same time Mia went missing. Oh, and it revealed the little trap door with the handle in the fireplace. Honestly, it's a pretty interesting way to show you how to move forward while also making you terrified to do so. On the wall, you can find a painting of the Baker family that they talked about. And looking at them, they seem pretty normal. It makes you wonder how any of this could have happened and why the hell they need a secret passageway in their wall. I know it's just a game and you're not supposed to question this kind of stuff, but what kind of Scooby-Doo ass villain do you need to be to get one of these bitches built? Some random ass house in Louisiana and they built a labyrinth underneath it just for fun. I'll spoil it for you. It still doesn't make sense by the end. I still don't understand why they did this. We just gotta move on from it. And of course, it leads to a prison cell, because why not? They must have had Doofenshmirtz draw up the plans for this house. And this prison cell is locked shut with a chain, which means it's time to engage in one of Resident Evil's age-old gameplay loops, where you have to go around and find a way to open up this door. Something that took me hours playing the first Resident Evil games, just going around and trying to find the key. And oh boy, was it a tough one in this one. All I had to do was look to the left, and there it was, some bolt cutters, and you pull them over and you open it up. What a puzzle, man. I was bewildered on that one. I didn't know where it was. On the wall around the bolt cutters, though, are different missing person pages, likely representing the people that have gone missing that we read about in the newspaper earlier. And there's a little booklet that has a list of all these people. And next to their names, you'll either say like turned or dead. Most of them say dead, but next to the cameraman, it says L. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but I'm gonna assume he took one. Is that right? Hang on. No, I think, all right, whatever. This little booklet also means they're doing some experiments here. You know, this is almost like a fairy tale where you save a princess from a dragon, except in this case, princess is my wife, and the dragon is a dirty kitchen and hillbillies. But honestly, I'd rather fight a dragon than hillbillies. Hillbillies kind of freak me out.
Did anyone see you? Did he see you?
Hey, who else is here? What the hell's going on?
Daddy's coming. We need to go.
Daddy?
We need to go now!
It seems like Mia's got a couple of screws loose and weird spaghetti hair. And now she's gonna lead us even deeper into the weird labyrinth under this house. If she wanted to get out, why would we not just go back the way that we came? I mean, I know there's a broken ladder, but if this were anything like the other Resident Evil games, then one of them would just crouch down in front of the ladder and scream the other person's name until they got to throw him up.
Come on!
Hurry up!
Come on!
Come on!
Come on! Come
Hurry
on!
up!
Come on!
Hurry up!
Come on!
What I will say about this game is that the environmental storytelling is off the charts. I mean, just being able to discern the missing persons through newspapers and pages on the wall, as well as the disgusting environments. I mean, the person designing these environments must have had some bills due, because these look crazy good. Nothing is more crucial for effective horror than atmosphere, and these environments truly set the atmosphere from start to finish. But close runner-ups in horror necessities are scary dolls and loud noises off screen, and baby, we got them both. And of course, when you go to chase after her, she's nowhere to be found, because why would she be? You know, why would it be that easy, you know? This gives us a chance to walk around, explore a couple things, find a healing item, which I think is really funny in this game. The healing item is just like a little bottle that you pour all over yourself and then you're good. I think this is only rivaled by the Far Cry healing animations, which are just absolutely insane. And oh boy, look at that. The phone is ringing. What could be more important? So you go and answer this random family's phone. Oh my God, it's a lady who knows everything that is going on and is gonna tell us exactly where to go. But before we can do any of that, oh my God, Mia is crazy again. Whoa, oh gosh. Scary. Now at this point, it's like a switch has flipped within Mia, and she begins stabbing us like a rabid animal with a knife. And honestly, she looks terrifying. Before, I mentioned that this game uses old horror movies as a blueprint, and Mia is our first real taste of that. You see, in the Evil Dead remake from 2013, the main character, Mia, is brought out to a cabin in the woods where her friends help her detox off of drugs. But underneath the cabin in the basement is the goddamn Necronomicon, a book made of skin and with demonic texts inside. So naturally, they open it up and read it out loud, because why the fuck not, I guess. And in doing so, they release an ancient evil that possesses Mia. And then throughout the movie, Mia has a constant battle between her and this demon inside of her, and her friends suffer the consequences, never really knowing if they're talking to Mia or the demon. I'm sure you can connect a couple dots here and see that Mia was ripped straight out of the Evil Dead remake and plopped down in here. Not only does she got the same first name, but she also does that thing where she kind of flips between normal Mia and scary Mia. When you copy someone's homework, you're not supposed to make it look too obvious. I don't think they got that memo. It could be argued either way, whether this is a tasteful tribute to the Evil Dead remake or a soulless copy-paste job. Personally, I like it. I think it's a good homage to that movie, and only because Mia is not the central antagonist of the game. I think if the game was all about her, yeah, it'd be kind of shitty. But there's so much more to Resident Evil 7 that this very clear reference to Evil Dead does not feel cheap. And I think it helps that the developers went out of their way to state that the Evil Dead was a huge reference for this game. And if that wasn't made obvious enough with Mia's character, What happens next is about to make it real obvious. You see, in the original Evil Dead franchise, before the remake, specifically Evil Dead 2 in 1987, the main character, Ash, cuts off his hand with a chainsaw. That's one way to do nofap. And now here comes good old Mia, headed down the hallway with a chainsaw, clearly meant to make us think that she's gonna cut off our hand. Oh my God! No! Oh, now the difference here is Ash actually put the chainsaw on his hand and it's awesome. And Ethan Winters just put that bitch in his pocket and walked around stumping. See, Mia may be taken care of, but as soon as she goes down, a new threat appears.
Welcome to the family, son.
Papa. We've mentioned it briefly, but I think now is a good time to talk about the Baker family and what really happened with Mia. A little lower down for you. So basically, Mia, that sweet, beautiful woman who could do no wrong, actually a super spy. And she was here doing super spy stuff. When she disappeared 3 years ago, she told Ethan she was going off to do a babysitting job. Lie. She was actually on a big ship helping to transport this little girl named Evelyn by sea. Evelyn was like patient zero for this crazy bioweapon that they called the mold. Long story short, they were on the ship and it crashed. Now stick with me on this. Jack, Marguerite, Lucas, and Zoe Baker were all living happily, peacefully in their Louisiana home that for some reason has Scooby-Doo traps in it. One swampy bayou day, Jack Baker finds Evelyn and Mia washed up on shore after that ship had crashed, and he, being the good Samaritan that he is, brought them into his home.
Let's get this poor girl some fresh clothes and into a warm bed. We'll put her in Lucas's old room.
The Bakers gave them a place to stay and took care of them. But remember, Evelyn is basically a bioweapon. And this mold she was infected with is contagious. Now, the mold affects people in stages. The first stage is increased regenerative abilities. The second is when the brain gets infected and the host starts to become mind controlled by Evelyn. And the third is total cell replacement. Basically, their whole body gets replaced with mold and they get super strength and stuff. Now, the Baker family had no chance of understanding what they were being turned into. And as we are brought to the big family house, apparently there's another house, we are shown exactly what they've become.
Where am I? What the hell?
Rise and shine, sleepyhead. It's time for supper.
Dude, I wasn't ready, hang on. This sweet, caring family has become a twisted reflection of what they once were. And this dinner scene stands out to me most out of anything in the game just because of how disturbing it is. And it also stands out as one of the strongest references to classic horror. Specifically in this scenario, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Just looking at the two scenes side by side, you can see that they are directly parallel. And beyond just the visual similarities, what I see here more as a parallel is a family that is living through a disgusting, terrible, horrific scenario and behaving as though it is completely normal. Behaving normally in wildly abnormal scenarios is peak horror, and both of these families behave as though it is just another family dinner. Now, I know that's a lot of references and shit to take in, but what's crazy is that's just the tip of the iceberg. The references to classic horror movies go even deeper, as each one of these little freaks at the table represents a core piece of horror history. Now, the intro was pretty cut and dry, with old spaghetti hair over here being the main focus for that portion, but the rest of the game is split up into different sections, and each one of these Baker family members is the focus or antagonist of that section. And the first one we focus on is Big Papa Jack Baker. Once the dinner scene goes a little wild, they try to make you eat some food, a hand gets cut off, blah, blah, blah. Everybody gets up and leaves conveniently, and you are given free roam to explore the house. Now, you can find some ammo, try out the couches, slap around grandma a little bit, but after a short time, here's Johnny. Jack Baker chases you through this house, but walking, never running. Why? Because Jack Baker and his section are the embodiment of the slasher film. Friday the 13th, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, or The Shining, one of the most iconic slasher films ever made that stars a murderous father named Jack.
A little slow tonight, isn't it?
He's not running at you because that is rule number one of the slasher film. The scary murder guy always walks menacingly at you. He never runs, and somehow he always catches up to you anyway. The only way to escape from Jack is through this, hatch in the floor. I know Fred is walking around with that dumb fucking ascot around his neck somewhere. This is like peak Scooby-Doo shit. I seriously don't understand how this random bayou house has more hidden passageways than the damn Batcave, but it provides for a good exit, so whatever. After crawling around in the floorboards a little bit like a little worm guy, we make it to the second save room. And would you look at that? Another phone call just for me. Hello?
Hi, I'm looking for Hugh.
No, sorry, I think you have the wrong number.
No one named Hugh there?
Yeah, no, no one named Hugh here.
Last name Janus?
Sorry, don't know what to tell you. I've never met a Hugh Jane. God damn.
You did good, Ethan.
Zoe, right? And what the fuck are they?
Shut up and listen if you want to stay alive. You gotta get out of that house. There might be a way out through the main hall.
All right.
Oh, and that thing on your wrist is a codex. Don't lose it. It's important.
All right, two things. One, that was Zoe Baker. I didn't mention her name before, but she is one of the Bakers. For some reason, she has remained sentient. I'm still not like fully clear on why. I'm sure there's a reason. I just it never clicked for me. She pretty much guides us through this whole game over the phone. And two, I don't know if you noticed yet, but Ethan's hand is like stapled back onto his body and it's fine and like functional. I wonder what's going on there. I don't know. Maybe something, maybe some shenanigans, like a little bit of shenanigans. He got in the mold. It's like a whole, don't worry about it. Leaving the save room leads you right back out into the house. The game plan is to go up to this window, talk to this cop. Oh boy, he's gonna be helpful and he's definitely not gonna die. Oh crap, who could have seen that coming? This triggers a boss fight with Jack Baker. And now, Jack is far too molded to just be shot in the head and killed. And so, with this boss fight, we gotta get a little creative. Hit him with a car. Now this would normally kill any person, but if you think that's the end of Jack Baker, then you clearly don't know rule number 2 of slasher films. The killer always gets back up.
Do I have your attention, boy? You're about to see some wonderful. Fuck!
And shoots himself in the head, I guess. Whatever, he's out of the way now, which gives us the opportunity to get a funny medallion and put it on a door, because keys are for bitches. And with that, we're set free into the main house, the most classic of Resident Evil settings. For a little bit of context here, the first Resident Evil game takes place in a mansion that is extremely similar to this one. Inside the mansion, there were few zombies compared to what later entries might have.
I'm trying to find like the good things to say about this game, but like, kind of hard to find.
But each one of them was a stressful encounter to either kill or try and get around in the narrow hallways and with the weird, like, very hard to tell what's going on control schemes. The core gameplay loop of Resident Evil 1 was moving around the mansion, opening different doors, solving puzzles so that you could get keys and open other doors. It was basically just a big scary scavenger hunt. Now this mansion here in Resident Evil 7 is most definitely meant to reflect that, what with its various themed keys and puzzles, as well as a great homage with this shotgun in here. There was a shotgun on the wall in the original Resident Evil where if you picked it up, it would like undo a mechanism and you would get locked in, and so you had to find a broken shotgun and put it up there and then you could leave. And so they put that same thing in Resident Evil 7, which I really like. But they did not put the dog hallway. That remains in Resident Evil 1 and in my nightmares. Oh fuck! No! Why do bad things happen to me? I'm gonna be honest, I do love this game. I really, really do. But it almost seems to me like instead of writing this game outright, it was more like they just assembled a puzzle and all of the pieces were different media that they enjoyed. I think it works when you put it all together and you're experiencing it, but when you lay it out like this, it's a little iffy. Anyway, eventually Jack catches up because, like I told you, the killer's never dead, rule number 2. And see, in slasher movies, the scariest part is not when the person running gets caught, it's the chase. Oftentimes they spend half the movie being chased with the near misses or hiding just around the corner hoping he won't hear you. And this is something they get so incredibly right with Jack Baker. As we're exploring and looking for these keys that we need, Jack Baker is either right behind us or nowhere to be seen. The horror comes from the atmosphere set in this mansion. I mean, seriously, the environment designers and the people that scored this game knocked it out of the park. And two, because we know we can't kill Jack Baker. We hit him with a car and he shot himself in the face. He's not gonna die. We can't face him head on, so we have to run. In that choice between fight or flight, one of those options has been removed. Flight is all we got. I've always said this when watching horror movies, like, you know, when they shoot the guy and then he gets up, I'm thinking, man, y'all just cut him up into like little pieces. Like, I'm talking little tiny cubes. What is he gonna do if he's cubes? Michael Myers not gonna come get you if he's cubes. And if he does, what is he gonna do? He's cubes. Are the little pieces gonna come rolling at you? That's stupid. The fucked up thing about Jack Baker is the little cubes will probably come rolling at you. And it will only be stupid until they form into a big moldy mass and eat you. After a little game of Duck Duck Goose that seems to have gotten out of hand, we get a brief moment away from Jack Baker where we go down into the basement / morgue / why is any of this here? And honestly, this is one of the weakest points in Resident Evil 7. Wandering through these terrifyingly claustrophobic halls, we are faced with dark, lumbering creatures. These are called the Molded, and they suck. I mean, they can hurt you, but at the end of the day, you kind of just go around them. It was hard to go around zombies in the first Resident Evil because, I mean, the hallways were a little tighter and the camera angles and controls made it impossible. But in this game, you can move around pretty easily. And I mean, the mud guys just look kind of stupid. They're just like little mud boys. It may have been scary if they just put one beefy one down here that chased you all around through the basement, kind of like Ustanok from Resident Evil 6, the greatest character in all of fiction.
Look at him!
But they're copied and pasted all throughout this basement, and they're really just cookie cutter bullet sponges meant to make, I don't know, slightly inconvenience you. Clearly the Bakers were the stars of the show here, and these little things were just plopped in here to give you something to fight. Thankfully, they're not that hard to kill, but I find them to be an annoyance more than anything. Now, our little section with Jack Baker comes to a head in this creepy looking murder dungeon, where he continues to eat our bullets like they're nothing. There's no way we stand a chance against this guy. That is until he opens up a little fence and we get a chainsaw. This is the cut him up into little pieces moment that I've been waiting for my entire life. This boss fight works a little strange mechanically, but his maniacal laughing and insane chainsaw scissors keep the tension pretty high. To cement the Evil Dead references even further, while you're fighting Jack, you can hear him yell out, "Groovy." This is they did that in Evil Dead. The fight is intense, but eventually he pops like a balloon, and that concludes our time with Jack Baker. Sadly, you need to break the chainsaw to get out of here. I would have loved an opportunity to go full Ash on him, but this does mean that we can move on now to Marguerite Baker. Now, it's hard to pin down a genre for Marguerite Baker, but the professional conclusion I've come to is weird, gross bug shit. He was slashers, she's weird, gross bug shit. Her design was inspired by a movie called The Brood, which I would also classify as weird, gross bug shit, and it definitely works in this context. Apparently Marguerite, as her infection was spreading, gained a connection with all the little bugs out in the bayou, and it gave her the ability to control them and leave all these like weird, gross hives everywhere. Marguerite kind of does the same thing that Jack does, where she'll menacingly walk around, but when she gets close to you, she'll just like swarm you with bugs. It's similar, but it definitely doesn't hit the same. I'd say of the three, her section is my least favorite, and that is not helped by her insane boss fight. She chases you to this weird outbuilding where you'll never guess you get swarmed by a bunch of bugs, and she chases you around there with her weird, spindly little arms. Her body's contorted into some kind of spider, and she's formed some big weird hive on her lady parts. The boss fight with Jack was at least like this cool action set piece with a chainsaw. In this one, you just like kick Marguerite in the cooter until she turns to stone and then disintegrates. I'm not gonna spend any more time talking about her section because frankly, I find it pretty dull, especially when compared to the next section with Lucas, the son, the guy who got his hand cut off. We're like Nub brothers. Lucas is a huge genre shift. When we first encounter him, he's got these lights leading us upward. Glowing paint guides our path, and a TV left with a message for us.
Forward. That's better.
See, at this point in the game, we're looking for a set of ingredients that can be used to make a cure for Zoe and Mia. And as it turns out, Lucas has them. and he'll give them to us. But in return, he wants to play a game. The walls are lined with plastic. Bombs are placed along our path. Lucas has handcrafted this path through the mansion, and as you walk it, he's taunting you, torturing you. And if you haven't picked up on the genre that Lucas is based on, I want to tell you about a little movie called Saw.
You wanna play a little game?
Now, unlike a traditional slasher movie, Saw does not feature a killer hunting down victims like prey. No, instead the killer places his victims in a highly controlled environment where he orchestrates a series of games that these unwilling participants must play. I'm gonna be honest, those movies are pretty gross and I can't really watch them anymore. One time I got really high and someone put on a Saw movie and it freaked me out. But I think it's a cool concept and it's played out pretty well here. See, Lucas embodies this torture horror, and it is reflected in our first boss fight with Lucas, where we don't actually fight Lucas. Instead, we're led down a path to this mutilated monster and forced to fight it, while Lucas, over the intercom, acts as a twisted moderator.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, welcome to the bonfire!
Shoutcasting the entire fight, the lights, the speakers, and this is just the beginning. Upon our path, Lucas has left a corpse, and with it is the code for the door that he wants us to walk through next. And as soon as we do, he's right there to shut it behind us. And now we are trapped in this room that he has built for us. It might as well be ripped straight from a Saw movie. Our objective is to light a candle and put it on a cake. Pretty simple. Only it's not simple. In fact, it is a very convoluted set of puzzles that was slightly infuriating, but overall very stimulating. Really though, unlike a Saw puzzle, the game is completely rigged here, and no matter what you do, you will always end up being the loser. That's a reference to It. It's a clown that carves loser into your arm, and it's they say that in the movie. It's It. You seen It? It's a movie called It. There's a clown, he says loser. It's like a whole thing. The only way to actually overcome this puzzle is to outsmart Lucas. Or be bomb-proof, I guess. Lucas is an exceptionally well done depiction of this kind of horror. The entire time that he is around, he remains in control. And the second that we gain the upper hand, dude is gone like the wind. This deep into a game, after we've gone up against such wacky enemies, Lucas gives the player a sense of powerlessness that is really crucial to keeping the horror alive. Nothing about Marguerite was that scary. In fact, it was just kind of gross, but Lucas truly takes all control away from the player and keeps you guessing what's gonna happen next, which is very, very good for late stages in the game. And that's all the Bakers. With Lucas in the wind, we can finally take a breath and save our wife. Sack, bitch, what did I tell you? Rule number 2, the slasher never dies. He's still here, baby. He just looked like a raisin. This fight with Jack Baker is, in my opinion, completely unnecessary, but to be fair, personally, I really hate those boss fights where it's just a big guy and they have big eyes and you gotta shoot the eyes. I think Dead Space 3 kind of just ruined that for me. But they're playing by slasher rules, baby, so he's gotta come back. This boss fight is less about him and more about the implications of killing him. You see, the only way to kill Jack Baker is to cure him, and the problem is, we only have 2 cures. So after we kill him, we have to go back to Mia and Zoe and make a choice. And it's such a hard decision, so heart-wrenching. On the one hand, we've got, you know, your loving wife who's been missing for 3 years and you came all the way here to find her. And on the other hand, there's the girl who was on the phone. Yeah, you pick Mia. That's the canon ending, is you pick Mia. Why would you pick Zoe? I'm not really sure. Honestly, if you do pick Zoe, she just dies anyway. There's no reason to pick Zoe. This is such a stupid choice, but whatever. You save Mia, you stab her, Zoe gets mad, whatever. Fuck you, I just met you. This is literally my wife. Why would I do anything different? You get on the boat with Mia, you ride off into the sunset just like Resident Evil 4, but except this time, it's not over. Before we can get away, we're faced with the final enemy of this game. The one who started it all. I know I told you about the Mia being a secret agent and all the history with the Bakers and stuff like that early on in the video, but it's actually here at this section of the game where they lore dump all of that stuff on you. Personally, I thought it was better to just tell you up front because it makes things a little less confusing. And I think knowing that the Bakers were initially this beautiful, loving, caring family and had been tragically warped into these nasty things makes them like even scarier. I think it's stupid that they just don't tell you what's going on and then trauma dump everything on you at the end. But one thing I think was worth holding on to until the end here was the little more backstory we get on Evelyn. Evelyn was just a little girl who wanted a family, And Mia and this other dude were kind of acting as her fake family, but she wanted a real one. So she infected the Bakers and made them her family. All she needed was, I think they said it was like she needed a dad. I don't understand why Jack Baker wasn't her dad, but I don't think I'm getting the full picture. Either way, she is the reason that Ethan was summoned out here. He was gonna be her papa. While they're on the ship, Ethan gets trapped in the mold, and then he gets a bunch of visions from like Jack. Seriously, I'm telling you, Slasher never dies. He came back in a dream. It kind of counts. Where all the Bakers represented different kinds of horror, I believe Evelyn represents psychological horror. She takes over your mind so that you can never trust anything that you see or hear. That's terrifying. Countless films use this kind of horror, and that's because it is a kind of horror that really sticks with you. Each of the Bakers was violent in some way, and violence, while scary, is a means to an end. There's like an anticipated outcome. And for your mind to be warped so that you can't trust anything that you see, slowly losing yourself, that is far scarier than anything physical. Walking again through the Baker's house, we're shown things, we hear things that cannot possibly be there. Evelyn is in Ethan's head, and there's only one way to get her out. And guess what? She's old. Oh my God, that was Evelyn the whole time. The grandma was Evelyn. Holy smokes, I knew there was some shenanigans. And now she's gonna melt down and get all scary like Monster House. This is just like Monster House. Evelyn has been right in front of us the entire time, around every corner, and yet we did nothing. I mean, I did try to shoot her a couple times, but that's just because I'm a bad person. There's a crazy boss fight with her. It gets a little wild. She gets big. You start to shoot the bulbs. It's awesome, but it wouldn't be Resident Evil if someone didn't throw you a weapon right at the end for you to take the final shot.
Playtime, bro.
I think the question here is, does this work? Does all of this work together? My answer? Hell yeah, sometimes. I mean, like, it's pretty good, but I mean, I don't know, some parts kind of sucked. It was pretty good. Yeah. The amount of references to other horror media here is kind of insane, and it makes me wonder if I liked the game itself or if I just liked all the things that it was referencing. Some people might consider that cheap, but I would argue that the best media out there is just someone grabbing all the things that they like and mashing them together and putting their own sauce on it. Yeah, sure, this game is kind of just a copy paste of a bunch of other horror media, but the key here is that it has the sauce. I had a good time, and I think really that's all that matters to me. And honestly, I love that it brought Resident Evil back to its roots. While I had fun with Resident Evil 6, it was one of the most hilariously awful games I've ever played, and it was only fun because it was bad. This is a genuinely fun game. Anyway, game good, video over. Click the card right here, watch another thing. Do like the like and subscribe stuff. Do all that. That would be great. YouTube thinks you'll like this one. Are they right? Let's find out. Click it. Thank you. Goodbye.